Tuning Tuesday, episode 48, guys. Joe and Justin making some Team America World Police references before the camera went live.
We're just talking about pop culture over here. Movies, Team America.
Yeah, we'll change from tuning. We'll go into pop culture.
Okay.
And then we'll dominate all. Since I know Dorian's going to ask, progress is being made on the truck. Progress is being made. Front suspension's on, rear suspension's like halfway through going on. But we haven't really done anything to your truck lately. Is your truck coming to ModNats too?
I think it is. I gotta figure out if I'm gonna drive it or somebody else is gonna drive it. So now taking applications for drivers for my truck at Mod Nationals.
Please cite references
Yes.
of other fast trucks you have driven or
Yes.
fast cars.
Yes. Must have your own helmet,
Yep.
pants.
And fire suit.
Yeah.
Carry your own line of insurance.
Yeah. Yes.
Sign the
Sign some waivers.
yeah, all of them actually.
All of the waivers. Yes. So 48 episodes.
48.
Started off with you and Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Continued with you and me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Donnie's still pissed off about that.
About what? He wanted to be on Tuning Tuesday?
No, he says I left him on Burnout Box. Yes.
So left him with your wife instead.
Yeah.
I don't know how Rebecca should take that.
I know. Babe, if you're watching, you should give Donnie an earful on that.
A little scolding. So I guess we'll start taking questions then.
Yeah,
Unless you have
let's do some questions.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second because
Holding.
I was actually sharing. So
Oh, I'm down with that.
I was.
I mean, we got some exciting stuff going on, but let's get some questions going because that's why the show is here.
Exactly. Does anyone like peanut butter and jelly?
Michael Goad says Jesus loves you guys.
I bet he does.
Oh.
Jesus loves all.
Joe, you just say that so naturally.
This is kind of a long one. Let's see if we can get through it. Joshua says, "Hi VMP, love the show. Have a 14 GT with a VMP Gen2R. It has an 82 millimeter pulley, stage 3 NA comp cams, and full exhaust. Made 640 to the wheel and 540 torque on 93. He's getting a dual pump return fuel system with ID 1050s and an E85 tune. We'll be going to a 79 millimeter pulley.
Nice.
What do you think it will make? His goal is 700 to the wheel. If not, do I need to get out there with Do I need to get there without opening a window on the block?
So did he say whether it was automatic or manual? I assume
did
it was
not.
manual. Assuming it's manual, you should be right at that like 700, 730 mark with a 79 millimeter pulley on E85 with your cams and everything else that's done to it.
With a pretty conservative tune.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it should keep everything together.
Yeah, and I'm citing a relatively close example, Victor Williams.
Okay. Did he end up doing corn? Oh, he did cams though.
Yeah, he did cams, and then he recently went T56 Magnum and corn and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, you've been remote tuning. I mean,
Yep.
we've been tuning Victor Williams' car for what, 3
It has
years
to be
now?
2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
And it's stock short block, comp cams. I want to say he's doing he does a mix of like the stage 2, stage 3, kind of like what you used to do with Rebecca's car. And then he had the return fuel system and stuff.
That's new because he was running race gas. And like most people start out like, I'm making 600, I'm happy for about 2 days. And then I'm making more like, usually it's like 6 months to a year, not 2 days.
Yeah.
But
when we're exaggerating, may as well go hard.
yeah. And then, so you make like 600 for like 6 months to a year, and then you start just dialing it up. And there's a natural progression to all this stuff. But like Victor Williams has been making 700 since 650, 700 since the get-go. Like he dumped everything all at once, and he only goes farther. Because there's those stock motor superheroes that are making 8. I mean, we've done stupid shit with stock motors.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee how long it'll last, but you're certainly welcome to try.
Yeah, exactly.
And your chances are pretty good if you try.
And we also played with Alex's friend. His name escapes me at the moment.
Ben? Or,
No, not bin calendar.
No, stock 5.0.
Yeah, stock 5.0. I can't. Donnie Renfro.
Yes, the
Okay.
other Donnie.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I mean his car was 700 plus with cams on corn
Yeah.
through an auto.
Yep, yep.
Ran 9.2.
Yeah. Yep, yep. And then he sold it. So sad.
Oh, he
So-
sold it.
And he sold the car.
That is sucks.
So Joshua came back with the question just a minute ago,
Mhm.
and said that it's manual.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, all the same applies. Race car
It's a
stuff.
little easier to make dyno numbers with a manual.
Oh, shut.
Less parasitic loss.
Bubba Blue says, morning, Carrie. Good morning, Bubba. My question is, what could I expect to see an improvement on the quarter with a ported 18 manifold on a 12 GT? So far, I'm at 12.8.
Oh, so Bubba Blue, hey, because we've been talking, and I think that's the same Bubba Blue. But so improvement-wise,
Similar to what some guys run with Cobra Jet and Boss 302 intakes on the same mods, if
mean,
not a little bit better.
it would be critical to have the right tune to take advantage of the higher RPM power of the 18 manifold. But when you add anywhere from 20 to 40 horse under the area of the curve, and you're in that area while racing, I mean, there's the potential to make significant ET improvements, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Dorian just chimed in. He says, I'm here.
Hi,
Hey,
Dorian.
Dorian.
Ricardo says the car throws code, and a mechanic guy told me the issue might be a bad wire or a bad fuse. I already changed the upstream sensors. I have long tube headers. What do you guys think? Code is P2240.
Well, just
I
because
would
he
say that's
suggested it,
a heater code or circuit code.
I'm just going to say it's a wiring or fuse too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think that's probably what it probably is what it is.
I mean, but we can give you a little more information than that, because that's what we do here. Give
Yeah.
out information.
So if you're running into an issue with a circuit code that's heated O2 sensor related, especially if it's after you've installed long tubes or after you've done a transmission swap or something like that, step one is definitely looking at the fuses. If your fuse is blown, you want to figure out why it blew, whether that was because your O2 sensor shorted out internally somehow, or if it's because you have a wiring issue where you're somehow getting 12-volt power to a ground source or getting it to backfeed somehow else to burn a fuse.
So the end of your O2 sensor has rubbed into the body, taken all the shielding off the wire, and is now shorting out amongst themselves, those
Yep,
4 or
yep.
5 wires. Or you melted it on the header, or it got pinched between a flange.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen, especially
Yeah.
if you're doing, let's say you're doing headers on jack stands under your car, and to tighten this one bolt and get the header aligned, you had to sit in a certain position, but in this certain position, you couldn't see where all the wiring was laying on the other side of the header, or after you get the header in, you couldn't see that your wiring up near the firewall where it turns was sitting close to the header, and now it's melted, and your wires are contacting onto the header directly and shorting out, and it burns your fuse.
And like
But-
extensions are notorious for not plugging in good.
Yep.
My favorite, swap side to side. Never swap your O2s side to side. It causes all kinds of crazy problems.
Well, you can swap the sensor itself, but do not swap the wiring for the
wiring
sensor side
harnesses.
to side.
Yeah,
That
I've-
causes really weird stuff, especially with closed loop, with cars that are closed loop at Watt.
Yeah.
You'll get one bank that's 1.0 lambda and the other bank that's half lambda.
And basically, what's behind this is if the computer's correcting a bank and it's not the right bank, it's not getting any feedback. So what does it do? It keeps correcting more and
Yeah.
more. And it just gets worse, and it goes divergent. One side's over here, the other side's over here. An engine that is the proper air fuel on one bank and the wrong air fuel on another bank sounds very interesting at idle.
It does, and speaking from experience, an EQ5 car will run just fine with or seemingly fine with the O2 swap bank to bank. Go as far as disconnecting injectors on one bank, all 4 injectors, and you will have no change in the way the car runs. It's very strange.
So you can figure that out through data logging. We know the patterns to look for in the data logs. Even if you just disconnect bank 1 and it shows up as bank 2 being disconnected on your data log, well, then you know.
Yep, then you know you got a problem.
Enough O2 sensor discussion.
So Dale Ettinger says 18 Mustang with Roush supercharger updates. Also, is my pulley ready?
We pulleys are done, but they got to be anodized and laser etched. And we got a couple 18 Mustangs with Roush blowers that Joe's tuning on. So TBD on the full results for those, but it's going to be good.
We have a physical product here. It's just not a completed physical product.
Rebecca chimed in and said, I kind of missed you giving away my driving responsibilities.
Oh! I thought you'd want to drive the faster vehicle, babe.
My bad.
Justin Michael says, Hola, Tuning Tuesday. Perfect. I had a VMP Stage 2 on my 14, ran perfect. Now I own a 17 S550 A6 with a Stage 2 Whipple tuned by a competitor. It does have a 132 millimeter Whipple throttle body and Ford 56-pound injectors with a nap. The drivability sucks. The car shifts hard 80% of the time, and the other times it's smooth. Sometimes surges at 80 miles per hour with light throttle before shifting into gear. I have followed my tuner's recommendation and checked hoses, vacuum install, all verified by 2 performance shops to be installed correctly. I am out of ideas. Do you have any for me?
I guess it would kind of depend on whether or not you have a return fuel system in the car and how that return fuel system is boost referenced or not boost referenced or vacuum only referenced. Stuff like that can cause weird things with fuel trims and thereby MAF, torque calculation, and drivability issues. The other thing I would look into if you're having any type of surging issues with the Whipple 132 is making sure that the Whipple throttle body is calibrated properly or that the TPS is calibrated properly. There's a very specific procedure to calibrating those throttle bodies based on TPS voltage, but very small swings in movement of the magnet that they have on there is a very large swing in what the throttle is going to do in terms of feedback and whether or not it's going to be within the specified range. But without knowing who you're working with, we don't really support that platform right now, so I couldn't tell you to get a tune from us. Since you already spent the money with the other guy, I would try to continue working with them just to try to get the issues resolved, or if it seems to be an issue that's common amongst that tuner specifically with that specific platform, it may be something that you may want to look into having someone else tune it.
So Michael Goad wants to know if this show is taking place in the Bible Belt. The show is taking place live nationally. Anywhere that you can get YouTube or Facebook Live, it is taking place.
But we're in Florida, in case you're wondering.
We are
New Smyrna Beach.
Matt Damon. We'll see how many people get that reference.
Corey says, what are your opinions on E85 with water meth with your blower?
Water puts the fire out. Unless you really need the octane or NOx suppression, corn is your friend. It burns.
Yeah, I'd say if you're going to do anything, do straight meth instead of worrying about water, because you already have the octane. My voice did something there. You already have the octane aspect with the E85. You have all the octane you're going to need for 90% of setups out there. The bigger advantage would be using meth to cool the air charge, which E85 kind of already does in the combustion chamber, but you'll just get a compounding effect with methanol. I don't know that it's necessary. If you don't already have a methanol injection kit, I don't know that I'd install one if you're using E85. But your car, your sandbox, do what you want.
Justin, who just had the question with the Whipple information in his 17, he says, I verified the throttle via that from Whipple and no return system.
Okay. I would be very specific with what your concerns are with your tuner, and if they cannot address your specific concerns, then have a conversation with them. If that conversation doesn't go the way that you hope, then get a tune from someone else and see if that resolves all your issues. But unfortunately, you're kind of at the mercy of what you're able to figure out with your tuner, and then if that doesn't work out, buying another tune.
Joe, you want to do the honors?
Of guessing what you win?
1 in 4 wins.
Oh,
This is why I've got this Diet Coke on the table.
So Peel it off. What are we winning?
Oh,
we're not
shit.
winning anything. I did bad. I blame it on the condensation that's on here. You get medium fries.
All right.
And then you have instructions on how to get your tokens.
Freedom Junkies says, LOL, Matt Damon, Team America, World Police.
See? It's a Team America thing. My man.
Yep. Wayne G says, Florida, the best state in the union.
Yep.
I see what you did there.
Dale Ettinger says, points. Corey Clyburn says, thanks, guys. That just helped him make a decision. Justin Muir says, hi, guys. I know this is about modifications, but I was hoping to ask another question. What is your favorite race event that you've attended from a racer and spectator standpoint?
Ooh, tricky.
Ooh, if Rebecca's still watching, I know
She is.
what one of her favorite events has been. Couple favorite events.
Or she was. Mhm.
Joe, you want to go first?
TX2K is my favorite quarter-mile event.
Yeah, gosh, no. There's a lot of good racing events out there.
But like, I've only really been to like 1 or 2 open track events. So Sebring's up there for me in open track. And then,
Sebring's a lot of track to drive too. And it's like what I like about Sebring, if you like turning corners, is there's so many areas of that track to master and then put all together that it's still a challenge after driving it for many years. So I could see it's huge. It's 3.6 miles, I think.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So open track, that's a good point. I was only thinking about going straight. That's all I've had on my mind for like the past several years.
I know, because you got rid of the boss, so you stopped doing all the turning stuff.
Yeah.
Although you did the GT350 out there at Sebring, didn't you?
I did. That thing turns so well on stock tires and stock brakes. It just pivots mid-corner, goes where you want it to go. Sorry. Wish I had more time to do that.
What's your favorite track event and your favorite open track event?
Sebring's my favorite track. That's where I learned to drive, and that's where I still like that track a lot. And like drag racing track events, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to go through a couple, and I'm going to tell you why I like them.
Mm-hmm.
So like Texas 2K was very cool because the track was prepped well, and it wasn't like ridiculously busy. It was well organized. Well, once they got rid of the roll, once we transitioned from roll racing to drag racing, it was well organized.
Yeah.
We showed up there on Wednesday night and just hung around until Friday night or Saturday morning when we could actually start drag racing. So Texas 2K, and then Ducks, 8th mile races, lights out, no mercy. There's just like a lot going on. There's a lot of crazy cars. I mean, you've got everything from, the open comp and the index racers to the $250,000, $500,000 pro mods that go ridiculously fast and set records. And then like my favorite all-around event, because it's near and dear to the heart, the Mustang community, and is Justin Young's Mod Motor Nationals, because he's really focused on making the racer happy, and he's at a point where he's growing the event, and he's thinking about it from the racer's perspective, not the promoter's perspective, not the business money-making perspective, just what do I have to do to get racers out of my event? So
Exactly.
lots of track time, good payouts, classes for everybody.
To that same end, I haven't been to one of his races yet. I think you went to was last year the first event that he did?
Second event. First
Second
event
event?
at South
Okay.
Georgia, second event overall. So
Okay.
yeah, you get to go to your first one, which will be the third one.
Yeah, I hope that
Ju-
it becomes my favorite event over TX2K.
Justin, third. Justin Young, if you're watching, this will be your third event. That's pretty good.
Something to be proud
We should
of.
get him like a cake or something.
A cake day? Justin Young gets a cake day? Is that Sunday or Friday?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
And do we go to Dairy Queen and get an ice cream cake?
Oh, good idea.
In the shape of a race car.
Do you want to build a race car?
Ken says he's got a 13 GT500 with SCI mono throttle body. Intake headers, 10% OD, making 750 wheel torque. Switching to E85 or E98 and adding a 2.4 what gains could I expect to see? Also, safe on the stock engine if keeping the RPMs below 6,500 on 100 octane now.
Although, you said 13, 14 GT500.
I think
right?
so.
So 13
Yeah.
GT500.
Yeah.
Okay, so those things are technically, according to Ford, safe to 7,000 because they wouldn't raise the rev limiter to something that they didn't feel was safe. But to that same end, it's essentially the same rotating assembly from a strength standpoint as an 07 to 12, where we've typically told people try and keep it below 6,700. But more to your end, wondering about power, safety, that type of stuff, E98 versus E85. I'd say the only advantage to E98 would be possibly the consistency, depending on where you're getting it from, whether you're talking a dedicated race fuel E98 or if you're talking a pump locally that sells E98, which I've heard some recent drama about an E98 pump, but we won't get into that. I would say power standpoint, I think when Carrie said I think it was SCI, I think she may have meant SCJ, or the customer mistyped
Super
it.
Cobra Jet, yeah.
So Super Cobra Jet mono on a basic setup like that, it's
It
probably, go ahead.
It says SCI.
Yeah, so
Oh, I see.
he may have just hit I instead of J. But not to split hairs,
Nope.
the power that I'd anticipate that making would be around 800 wheel without cams. I've seen cars make as high as like 820 on setups like that, but I wouldn't say that that's par for the course for a setup like that. Should be relatively safe. We've seen a lot of engines live long lives like that, as long as there's no fuel system issue that occurs at any point in time.
Yeah, he came back and said dedicated barrel SCJ.
So let's talk a little bit about E85, E90, E98.
So to me, the only real difference is the taxing of the fuel system.
Higher
and then the
ethanol
consistency of the
percentage,
fuel.
Lower fuel. Yeah, because I mean, like, we're going into winter, so we have the potential for people up north to be swapped from E85 to E70 at their local station, which, by the way, your car will just run richer, so it doesn't hurt anything. It's only if you're tuned for E70 and then you go put E85 or E98 in it, then you're leaner a lot. But like E85 in and of itself, I feel like is a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, and I'd almost prefer that it be sold countrywide at like E70, because then you get good startup characteristics, you get a majority of the octane benefit, and you get less fuel system related costs.
Yeah, I mean, like I have one or two people that they're on an E70 mix so they can not max out their fuel system. And that's, so like Joe, you mentioned something, startup characteristics. We're going into the colder winter months, and if you have E98 in your fuel tank, your car will probably never fucking start below 60 degrees.
You'd have to have a lot of enrichment, decay, or lost fuel to get E98 to light that cold.
And I mean, it's just, that's why the gasoline component is in pump E85, and that's why up north they have to go to E75, because all the gasoline just, lights off easier. We found this trick out at Mod Motor Nationals last year, and I don't know, it's not that big of a trick, but if you run E98 and you're in a colder climate, have a can of starting fluid in the car. Hit the
It'll
filter.
make your life easier.
Yeah, because when you crank that thing for minutes on end and you're just pumping raw fuel into the oil and out the exhaust, and it's just not good for shit. If it catches on fire in the exhaust or backfires in the exhaust.
I'd say in a perfect world, never crank it that long to begin with. But if you're just trying to get it started and you just get to that point out of like, oh, it almost started. Let's try it one more time. Then I'd say if it doesn't start on the first hit, shoot it with a hit of starter spray and just let it get running on that. And then go from there.
One time it was on a cold day and we pulled the plugs out, let them air dry and put them back in and the car started.
Yeah.
But the plugs got so wet that it wouldn't even fire.
Yeah.
Ken came back and said, thanks, guys. Thinking triple wall bro with ID 1600. Keep room for the future Gen 3 and engine build.
Yeah, so ID 1700s I think is what you mean there. But keep in mind, you can't really use any gasoline-based fuel on that with ID 1700s. Will it physically run? Yes. Is that injector controllable at is that injector happy with being at lower pulse widths on a gasoline-based fuel on such a small displacement engine? It is not. So if you're going to put ID 1700s in your car, you're going to have to be okay with some issues on a gasoline-based fuel if you ever put a gasoline-based fuel back in it.
Poor boy 313 says, Happy Tuesday. He loves the 93 tune. Thank you.
Awesome, man.
Good to hear.
Michael Goad says, my father has a 12 GT500. What would be a cheap but good horsepower / torque upgrade?
Like our VMP JLT 123 pack, if it doesn't have anything done to it, that's what I'd say would probably be your best bang for buck.
Basically, a pulley, a cold air, and a tune. We make the tool to swap the pulley. It's well worth the money to not foobar your stuff, and it'll feel like a new animal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 60 to 70 horsepower and torque throughout the whole curve.
Yeah.
Ken came back regarding the IDs. He said, will ID 1300 suffice then?
ID 1300 should get the job done. It just depends on what your end power goal is. The ID 1300s are something that you could run with a gasoline-based fuel if you ever had to switch for any reason.
And, we were talking about E85 versus E98 and stuff like that. That's where having those 1700s, if you ever want to run like E98,
yeah, that'd be the benefit to running 1700s.
Yeah.
If you truly do want to run E98, you'll probably need those at the fuel quantities you'll be consuming with like, let's say a max effort Gen 3 setup with E98. You'll probably need 1700s to support that properly.
Fuel flow is just a function of pressure, fuel pressure, size of the injector, and then RPM to some extent, but we worry about that.
He said end goal is 1200 to the wheel.
Oh, okay.
If you keep
1700s.
I want to say Grant's car has 1700s, but I can't remember now. Having a brain fart. But that car's 1270 wheel on the kit, and then 1100 wheel off the kit, and he was fine an injector at 1100 wheel.
Nice.
85% ethanol though.
Jeff Scarlin wants to know, do you guys see many variances in dyno results when two similar cars are also modded similarly?
With the newer stuff, like if they're truly in the same conditions, same fuel, same tune, I think they should be pretty darn close.
They should be fairly consistent. The issue is that most of the time people thinking the setup is consistent and one or two variables being off in the two setups. Like something as simple as the quality of the fuel can have a pretty drastic effect on a NOx sensor car as compared with a car that has a similar setup.
I mean, I had three S550s on the dyno one day on Winter Blend 93, and one of them made great power. The other two were down like 10, 15 horsepower because they just wouldn't take any timing. And even like, oh, my buddy's got the same setup as me, but he's got 315 gears, and I've got 373s or 410s. Especially 410s dyno lower. Not many people use 410s anymore, but
yeah, I mean it seems becoming more popular with the naturally aspirated 18 stuff than it has previously on the 11 to 17 stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really see that too much anymore.
And like, yeah, fuel quality, and then conditions. If you dyno, even if it's the same dyno on extreme ends of weather conditions, even though the dyno has a correction factor, the weather will affect how much power that engine was able to efficiently produce.
Ken came back, said, perfect, you guys kick ass. Thanks, boys.
No problem, man.
I will say
And
that
girls.
0304 Cobras, I've had two setups on the dyno the same day with the same timing curve and the same mods make less power, and I feel like that was variances in the engine builds back then.
Yeah, and even if you look at 11 to 17 stock cars, stock car on the dyno, stock car on the dyno, so no mods, different fuels in the tank or just different engines, you can get 5% variance in stock form, and you scale that up to 5% variance in a 600 horsepower setup. You're talking a pretty drastic difference.
Noticeable number, yeah.
We've had a couple questions, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there, and Justin, you can answer as you see fit. But people are asking about, it's just a 6 car. Is it going to be here? When is it getting the VMP blower? How much do you think it's going to put down with the new VMP blower? So everybody's...
Well, I think we calculated that if just a 6 a.k.a. Gavin, was to come here and to go on our dyno, that it would make 3,000 horsepower, right?
I thought it was 3,500.
We have to recheck our math. No, in all seriousness, we had to have a little fun with that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But in all seriousness, we talked to Gavin, and if it was theoretically to go on our dyno, we would baseline it beforehand, get the real number, and look at pulley size, boost, timing, air fuel, and then put our blower on it and see how much it picks up, because A to B is more important on a same dyno than peak to peak on two different dynos, right?
Yeah, especially if we're talking two different cars, but specifically in his case, I'd be curious to see what the A to B is, our dyno, not some dyno that set a setup that never makes 1,000, made 1,000, did.
Yeah. I mean, his car makes a lot of power. I don't think it makes some of the power numbers that were claimed. So that's the experienced opinion from Joe and I.
Yeah.
But
So,
he
well-
might be here tomorrow. Sorry, Carrie.
No, you're good.
I look forward to being proven wrong if if that scenario plays out, but I don't think it will.
So we will put it on the dyno. We're gonna get some video. We'll put it on the dyno after. If it comes
Hypothetically,
up
of course.
here, well, right, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
If it shows up,
But I told you we had a lot of things going on this week, so that might be one of them.
we do have a lot.
Winky
going
face, winky face.
on. Rebecca,
Like, share, and subscribe.
Rebecca, you have a fan club. I know you're watching. EM2K20 says you are gorgeous, so I thought you'd
Oh
like that.
my.
I know, she's got a fan club. James wants to know, do y'all plan to make any products for the 385 series engines anytime in the future?
385 series engines? Mm-hmm. Am I confused? Or am I just out of the know?
I don't know. I'm guessing that's an engine series, not a car series, so I don't know. Well, maybe he can elaborate on that, but we're mostly into Ford and Mustang and F-150. Dodge and Chevy are not a stretch, but beyond that, I'm going to say no. Well, maybe Toyota trucks.
TRD life?
And Jeeps are not that far
What do you say?
off.
The 385 was the final big block produced by Ford.
Oh, shit.
So
I feel like a loser.
Garrett Mitchell, aka Cletus, just chimed in and said, I got my cams and smaller pulley from VMP. Can't wait to let her rip tater chip.
Awesome. Awesome, Garrett.
For Dale.
Do it for Dale, let the freedom ring.
So did he get L&M NSRs or something else?
He got freedom sticks.
Freedom sticks? Dang. Lobe freedom sticks.
Yeah. No, L&M NSRs, to answer your question legitimately.
Nice, nice, nice.
Zell says, hi, Justin. I just got my tune on my VMP Gen2 with a 79 millimeter pulley on 91. And I'm seeing 16 degree of spark at 7,300 RPM. Is that okay?
For 91 and a 79, the load's going to be a little bit higher with a 79, around 1.6, 1.65. 91 octane. That's actually a pretty darn good curve for 91. What do you think, Joe?
I think that is, it's not adding in any timing at 16 degrees.
Okay.
So it's definitely not ideal, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that's out of norm for some of the lower quality 91s.
For 91. Which
Exactly.
91's not ideal, but we realize that's what half the country has to work with.
Yeah, so to the end of is it normal? I'd say relatively. 16 degrees, it should still make decent power, but don't go to the dyno expecting to make the highest number you've ever seen a Gen2R setup or Gen3 number make.
Wayne says, what headers do I need for 13 F-150 5.0 with a Roush catback exhaust?
You could do Cook's, Stainless Works, ARH, or Dynatech. I'm actually putting Dynatechs on my truck, so I'll be able to give you a review of how I like that install and how everything packages together. I don't have a Roush axle back on my truck, and my truck is an 11 to 14 truck. I have a 17. Justin has Cook's on his truck. His truck's a 16. And you have a Roush axle back, or Roush cat back mixed with another muffler to try and get the tone where you wanted
An
it.
extra muffler, yeah.
You may want to You may want to go with a catted setup to try and help keep it quiet. Justin has cats on his truck, but he still wanted a little bit. He wanted it toned a little bit more down when he put headers on it, so we added another muffler in
It was
there.
loud.
Yeah.
So Chris wants to know, what do you guys think about the quote leaked photo of the new GT500, the blue with white stripe one, that Ford was showing to dealers this month?
I liked Chris's photo better.
Did you see them? Did
No.
you see how I think the front of it looks? Have you ever seen that game where people wear the mouth guard and they're supposed to try to talk? Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, Chris, do you have the photo?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up.
See if we can run that on the show for everybody to see.
It looks just like the front end of the car.
I don't know. Based on the picture, I think it looks good if that's the actual finished product, but I don't know that it is until it shows up in the dealer.
I mean, the GT350 was kind of weird looking until we got used to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Jury's still out on that one. I don't know if it's real or not.
So Chris is pulling it up now, so that way, A, you can see the vehicle, for those who haven't seen it yet, and then can show, oh, there's my mouth guard piece, yeah, on the front of it. You have to see the game. It's so funny. Do you have a picture of the game itself?
No.
No.
No, they can look it up. Just tell them what game it is.
I think it's called Mouthpiece, Mouth Guard, Mouth something. I don't know.
That's a game? What do you do in that game?
You're supposed to. I don't know all the details. I've never played it itself, but there were a series of videos. Mouth Guard game. Let's see here. There were a series of videos where it became this big running joke where you put this thing in and people would record you playing this game. I don't know. Speak Out or Mouthful are the names of the games, but literally you put. I'll show you later.
Okay.
Let's continue with questions. Speak Out. People are laughing. They're saying ha ha ha. They know what I'm talking about, so I don't feel so stupid. Eli says, two-part question. Number one, 6R80 or a TH400 swap for an 800 to the wheel drag car on a budget. I know the 4R200 is great, but I can afford it. Part two, what's your honest opinion on JPC's TH400 swap kits? I believe they use transmission specialties.
I would say that if you're on a budget, a TH400 is a good idea, especially for a dedicated drag car. But I can't really speak to the whole end of JPC's TH400 thing. I don't have any experience with it.
I mean, usually in a situation like that, you're going to get, like, there's a lot of odds and ends. It's a GM transmission, so you need a drive shaft with the right slip yoke to go into the transmission. You need a flex plate.
Adapter bell housing, if it doesn't come with the transmission.
So, like, I mean, all those parts are readily available if they come in a kit that, you know, is set up for, like, the wheelbase of your car with the right length drive shaft and stuff like that. It definitely makes it easier.
But I think the end that you're trying to get to there is it doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper than picking up like a 6R80 car and just sticking with the 6R80 for an 800 horsepower drag setup and just doing like a set of clutches and an intermediate shaft.
Yeah.
Adam says, which tuning device do you recommend for an 03 Cobra SCT or the N-Gauge?
Tricky. I've never tuned an EQ5 with an N-Gauge yet. But both would, at the end of the day, would get the job done because it's basically just a means by which to get a file onto a car and then a means by which to read DTC codes and do some data logging. I personally like the way that the N-Gauge data logs and the ease with which you can data log with an N-Gauge once it's all set up and the fact that it all stores in an SD card. But tough call. They'll both get the job done. I don't really have a set preference either way.
67 Fairlane Coyote says, I have a 2012 Coyote truck motor. Among several modifications, one included installing factory GT intake cams. Does valve lash require adjustment with the hydraulic lash adjusters? My 12 ECO boost has adjustment by changing valve buckets.
The Coyote, the 4.6 and the 5.4, unless you're doing regrind cams with different base circles, you don't really have to do any lash adjustment on the rocker / follower.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
And from the factory is the ideal geometry, and I don't think nobody's really using regrinds anymore. I mean, we played around with them years ago, but yeah, everything's going to be pretty happy. And what a Coyote base circle is what? 615, 1.615 or so?
I don't know Coyote base circle.
Yeah, that's what it is. And you can get regrinds that are down like in the 580, and the hydraulic lash adjusters will take that up, but like I said, nobody uses hydraulic lash adjusters, so it's pretty simple. Swap the cams and you're good.
James wants to know, what can I expect from your tune for the 18 Roush Mustang standard standard calibration at the wheels, 18 phase 1 supercharger?
At this exact moment, you could expect nothing because we don't have a tune set up for those yet, but that's something we're developing over the next couple
we'll be
weeks.
releasing those soon, but from what we're seeing, like driving our car and stuff like that and all the stuff that we're fine-tuning, the dyno number is the least of that setup's concern. And the dyno numbers are important, but there's so much else to be had.
Owen says, what do you know about the electronic trans brakes that are available for the 15 to 17 Mustang autos? Would you recommend one?
Cool feature, but
I think if he's saying electronic trans brakes, is he saying the stuff you can do through tuning or the stuff you can do with another controller?
That's a good point. An external controller or through tuning. I mean, I know people have been talking about like the HP Tuner's trans brake and the tuning, but I'll just, whether it's electronic or, through an outside module or through tuning, it's unless you have a turbo car and you need to build boost on the line, it's not something you need.
No, I'd say if you're running like Pro Tree or something, it's something that's nice to have because you don't have to worry about the reaction time as much on the finger as you do the foot. But I'd say in most cases, 90% of the people out there don't need something like that. It's like the 10% of dedicated race turbo cars that would legitimately come in handy for.
Right.
Just so you know, we have about 9 minutes left, and I have a whole bunch of questions.
Okay.
So if we can try and work our way through them. Michael Goad says, I love to see new cars coming out, domestic and imports. Do you think they will ever make the Mustang all-wheel drive like the new M5, any E63s all-wheel drive but red drift mode?
I think it would be silly for them to never make it all-wheel drive, but it kind of gets away from the whole point of Mustang. I'd almost like for them to come out former car similar to a Mustang that's kind of like a sports car-y thing, like maybe bring back the Thunderbird but not bring back the Secretary's Thunderbird and make it something cool. No offense to Ford.
And I'll just like add a note there. Like Ford very much, like the new Mustangs, very much handle well, but in a straight line, you get to a point where rear-wheel drive is actually ideal. And like a 10-second vehicle, all-wheel drive is better, but once you start to go faster than that, the mechanics of weight transfer and suspension and everything work best in two-wheel drive.
Don't tell that to the GTR guys.
You're right, that's true.
Most of those guys end up making it to where the differential applies most of the torque to the rear anyways. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Also, hence the mechanics of lifting the front and planting the back.
Yeah.
Jeff Scarlin says, when do you guys like to lock the converter at watt on a Coyote 6R80? I've had a tune that locked at the top of second, and it felt weak on the 2 to 3 watt upshift. This was a centrifugal application.
On a Century, I probably wouldn't lock that thing till the top of fourth because you want to be up in, the more you are up in the power band, the more boost and power you're making, the more the RPMs are up is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
To that same end, was it locked in third gear when it shifted, or was it unlocked? And then if it's unlocked, how quickly did it relock after the shift to get shift firmness back up? They want like a specific answer.
Yeah. And a stock converter is very tight and very efficient. It'll only have 2 to 3% slip up top unlocked. So What I see is it makes your mile an hour a little better in the quarter, but it doesn't improve ET.
Ronnie says, Justin, what is your take on the tick/piston slap issue on the Gen 3 Coyotes?
What's your take on it, Justin?
Oh, man.
What do you take away from that?
I don't know.
I don't know if there really needs to be a take from anyone.
Yeah, I mean, all the 18s we've seen have been fine.
Yeah,
Ours, the transmission in ours has been fine. The engine's been fine, and it's an early 18 purchased in November of 17. It's almost a year old.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have an engine tech noise and you're worried about it, pull your engine apart.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, if it's warrantyable.
Well, even then,
Okay.
if you want to party with it, just pull it apart and put Ford's rotating assembly in it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why there's 6 bajillion threads about this, but like people being concerned about it. It's like, you have a warranty, right? All right, if you don't have a warranty, pull it out and build it.
Drive it till it breaks.
Yeah. The struggle.
Nick says, as tuners, what is your opinion on the Pro mod that recently made over 5,200 horsepower on a hub dyno on alcohol?
I want to say that was a Corvette Pro mod or something like that. I saw the video circling around. That's cool.
The ETs that Pro mods run would indicate they have about that much horsepower.
Yeah.
Dorian wants to know, what are the advantages of running E85, say 60% blending versus 100% on an 18 DI-PI blending?
You're saying 100% direct injection blend versus PI blend, and then versus 60 or 70% PI versus DI blend. And in theory, you get more cylinder cooling by injecting more fuel directly into the cylinder instead of injecting it into the port. But that's not to say that you'll actually get any tangible horsepower benefit from it.
On gasoline 93,
You almost need to on
yeah,
93.
the DI allows that thing to live at 12 to 1 compression, but at E85, octane's octane, no
Yeah.
matter how it gets in there.
Exactly. It's just a matter of how much cooling effect are you getting from it. Are you getting more benefit injecting it in the port and it's saturating in the air charge longer, or are you getting more benefit of injecting it not during the combustion process, but more intimately involved with the valve being closed injection?
Eric says, hi guys, what are your thoughts of putting a couple of gallons of E85 instead of using octane booster? Also, what do you think about doing that using a 93 specific tune?
Don't do that.
It's going to lean you
not
out
do that.
and it's not something that if we calibrate for it, you've got to consistently mix it. And yeah,
It's more headache than is necessary. Don't mix fuels. If you want to increase octane, use an octane booster. Don't mix C16 with standard fuel. Don't mix MS109 with standard fuel. What you're looking to do is increase octane of one fuel, like gasoline, put an octane booster in it. Don't put an octane booster in race gas. Don't put an octane booster in E85 unless it's made for E85.
But Joe, some is good, more is better.
God damn it. I hate that stuff.
I'm going to get my car tuned. I filled it up with E85.
So my biggest problem with that is stoic point.
Yeah.
For people that don't know what stoic is, it's a complete/perfect burn of an air-fuel charge going into a cylinder. So when you're mixing E85 with 93, let's call the 93 E15 stoic point like 1408. If you're mixing E85 in with it, you are now moving the stoichiometric air-fuel ratio of that fuel mixture further down. So you're going from 1408 to like 13.2. The problem with doing that is that if you have a vehicle that doesn't do closed loop correction for fueling error, or let's say one of your widebands is bad on a 11-up car, it's no longer targeting the correct stoic when it commands the injection without the closed loop control. So you have the potential to no longer be correcting to the right lambda value or the right AFR for the fuel that you're putting in the tank. So in short, don't mix fuels because you're not setting it up properly to inject the fuel in a proper mixture in a fuel injection system.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes, so I'm going to do some speed questions.
Fire away.
Mark Regner wants to know favorite aftermarket to use and why.
Favorite aftermarket what?
I think just in general, what's your favorite aftermarket?
The Mustang aftermarket.
Yeah, sure.
Lee says, when turning the decel off on Coyote swap cars, would the car still stall?
Turning decel off, so as in decel fuel shut off, or the torque-based decel? Because
It
both
may
of those,
be more likely to hang, which prevents it from stalling.
yeah, if he's talking about turning off torque-based decel, but torque-based decel should already be disabled in a Coyote in a control pack. But if he's talking about the decel fuel shut off, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to stall, because decel fuel shut off is set to turn back on at or near idle at a specified ramp rate.
Yeah, dcell fuel shut off's pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Zane says, sleeved Coyote or Iron Block 5.4 for a turbo 1200 plus horsepower build.
For simplicity's sake, 5.4 if you're just building a race car. But I like the technology in Coyote. Packaging is a bit easier with Coyote than it is 5.4, but it's kind of your decision to make.
Jason says, maybe not exactly tuning related, but ever hear of the 18 F-150 having a whistle on acceleration between 1500 to 2000 RPM? Wanting to start the mods on my new truck, but I hear a cold air intake makes it worse. It's like a dog whistle pitch.
Factory intakes suppress intake noise. That's why they've got
Little
various
resonator pockets and
all
the stuff in them.
It's the nature of the beast. If the noise bothers you, then don't do a cold air. Do everything else.
Or get really technical about it. Isolate the frequency that the noise is and pump the opposite frequency through your speakers.
Lee came back, said about the decel question, torque-based.
So if you do a torque-based decel disable switch, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fix an issue with the car stalling coming back down to idle, because if you have torque-based decel disabled properly, you're putting it in a dash pot. So then you have to make sure that dash pot's set up properly, and that you're, like, especially in a control pack, you have to keep an eye on how air is coming across the mass airflow sensor, especially in decel where you're off throttle, and you can still get weird fluctuations across the map, which is going to swing fueling, which can affect how the car returns back down to idle, and the spark calculation once returning back down to idle.
There's a lot of factors.
It's not as simple as you think it is. You can't just shut off torque-based decel and fix all your problems, because that may not be your problem to begin with.
You could get lucky.
Yeah, you may get lucky.
Sometimes the wrong tuning works as the desired result.
Yep.
Michael says, I heard that the idle of death is when the revs move up and down while idling. Should I worry?
What does he mean by idle of death, though?
Fluctuation. Yeah, I've never heard of that term, idle of death.
No.
So I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, if you're still in the tuning process, but it's not going to hurt anything.
Imelda wants to know, he says, hi guys, what is a good manual transmission upgrade for a 13 Mustang GT? I already installed a Barton short throw shifter, but not well satisfied with the performance. Thank you.
Are you not satisfied with the shift feel, or are you just wanting a little bit more reliability out of the setup? I'd say Calendar Stage 2's a good idea for most naturally aspirated bolt-on and basic supercharged setups. If you have a crazy supercharged setup, think about one of his G-Force gear sets. If you're looking to cure the MT82 problem for good, and you're looking to spend a good chunk of change on the front end, a TR6060 swap or T56 Magnum XL is a good swap to go with.
Zane, who asked about the sleeved Coyote or Iron Block, came back and said, which will hold the power level for longer, and what would be more cost efficient, E85 for street driving, E90 for racing?
The Coyote is going to make more power easier, but the 5.4, you're going to have less concerns of sleeve distortion, cracking blocks, all that type of stuff. You don't really hear of 5.4 4 valves splitting the block in half, or cracking a sleeve, or cracking the block. None of that. So I'd say for a dedicated race car where you don't really have a concern of weight of the engine, go 5.4 4 valve and just push a bunch of boost through it on a good fuel.
Slab Shack says, I have older guys telling me to get some gear. They don't know the 14 GT500 has a different gear ratio. I did a 1.8 60-foot launching at 3,400 RPM. If any, what gear would you do?
I would not do anything over a 373 and a 1314 GT500 unless you're only doing 1/8 mile stuff and you're trying to target a specific gear for shift points. But a 373 with the right size tire and the right RPM to rev it out to, based on my experience, go to about 160 miles an hour. After that, you really got to start spinning the motor higher than I'm comfortable with.
And I just add power.
Yeah.
Necessity, removes the need for more mechanical advantage if you have more power.
Yep, yeah.
Rob says, great show, appreciate you guys taking the time. With long tube headers, no cats on a 17 Mustang Whipple. What are your thoughts about disabling long-term fuel trims?
I feel like in most cases it doesn't hurt anything, but if you have any hope or dream of passing an emissions test, you need long-terms on.
Yeah, and like Joe said, they don't really hurt anything.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like is sometimes you learn a weird correction and it applies at watt. Like say it pulls 80% fuel out, now it's having to add it in on the short term.
Yeah.
But in most cases you don't need to disable it, it's just nice from a tuning standpoint.
Junior wants to know, do you make blowers for modular V8s or just for late engines?
We make
Junior?
a blower for a modular V8, specifically 0304 Cobra. We also make a 1.9 TVS for 463 valves. Most of our other blowers are catered towards the 544 valve module for GT500. Say modular, modular. And then Coyote 11 to 17 4 valve.
And then we've got Matt Coates making the manifold that uses our blower for some of the other 5.4 4-valve stuff.
Yeah, so that'd be like 5.4 head
That's
down
what
in
I'm
Australia.
looking for.
Yep.
Enrique says, I have an 18 F-150, 2.65 TVS, and Roush active catback. Want to make 600 to the wheels. We'll be putting stainless works headers, X-pipe. Which pulley size do you recommend? And when will you guys be putting out the 18 F-150 tune?
Step one is going to be making sure that your IATs are good for the dyno. With good IATs, that blower should have no problem making 600 wheel, even in stock form, but that's, again, watching IATs. If you're looking to make more, doing the headers and everything like that's definitely a good idea. But also circling back, even when you're tuned, you're going to have to keep an eye on IATs with that Roush setup. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing that we can do in tuning to counteract what's happening from an air temperature increase standpoint. We can only make sure that timing is safe for the air temp that's occurring, but we can't cool the car down in tuning.
Enrique also wants to know Driveshaft for F-150, IDX 1050 and converter? Question marks.
So I'm confused. He said 18 F-150. Is he wondering about which drive shaft to run and wondering if he can use ID 1050s and then which converter to use? 18 F-150, I'm not aware of a 10 or 80 converter that's out yet. ID 1050s, you can use them as long as you're tuned for them. And a drive shaft, I believe no, because it's 10 or 80. I was going to say some of the older drive shafts should work, but I don't know if the flanges and overall length of a 10 or 80 is different from a 6 or 80. I'd imagine that it is.
Andy says Roush blower with 79 millimeter pulley and ID 1000s, PMAS intake, VMP Twin 67. That's all he says. He doesn't have a question.
Okay.
Okay. Robert says I have an 11 Mustang 6R80 illuminator short block with VMP Gen2. Twin 67, E85, long tubes with 15% lower and 75 millimeter upper, about 16 pounds of boost. 800 to the wheel on 9.7 seconds in quarter mile. Will the short block and or stock trans handle more boost by changing to a 72 or 79 millimeter pulley? Thanks.
Yeah.
Frankly, I would be grateful that it's lived that long on the setup that it's on right now. But if
did he say an illuminator?
Yeah.
Oh, he did say illuminator.
Illuminator.
Okay. So the only thing that you're going to have to worry about past this point is cracking a sleeve or lifting a head. You should be fine to do that as long as you're one of the, I'd say one of the 90%ers with an illuminator that doesn't have an issue with sleeves and doesn't have an issue with lifting heads. Going down to that pulley size should be fine.
I mean, a lot of people run them pretty hard, and once in a while they run into issues, but I mean,
We ran the snot out of the illuminator in Rebecca's car.
yeah. And I mean, when you get up to the 900,000 rear-wheel horsepower range, I mean, maintenance is maintenance.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
We're at about 2:38. There's probably about 4 more questions. Do you want to try and hit them, or do you want to go back and answer them manually?
Let's see if we can hit them offline.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. There is one in here, Joe, regarding a tune that a gentleman received from you last Friday. I'll send that over to you directly.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. With that said, I think this is a wrap.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to be at the Texas Mile this weekend, and we'll probably do some live stuff. So keep an eye out on our social media.
Matt Damon.
Did you say Matt Damon? Oh, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.